Thank you indeed, Miriam, and to Sharon for a heartwarming explanation of the key issues. It is indeed sad to think that in any society that women are not honoured and not respected, and most importantly, are not protected. I grew up like many people in a rural community. I visited one only last week in Inishowen, in the north part of this country, to hear of a similar organisation doing great work. The women who rang that helpline rang volunteers who were unpaid, offering support. There was no local amenity, no service, no accommodation, and women had to travel perhaps maybe an hour somewhere from a rural location. And that's just not feasible for somebody who is trapped, who is paralysed. And there may have been 38,000 calls to the helpline. I know from many of the people I've come across in my life, it is those who didn't have the confidence or the courage or the bravery to even pick up the phone because they were stripped of that confidence by living in such an abusive home. I was a youth worker for a period and I came across much of that abuse. I saw it follow through in the next generation of young children who stepped in to be perhaps the parent of the woman who was being abused. That child being robbed, therefore, of their childhood. That child growing up manipulated between two parents, trying to please both, never knowing what was in store any night that they came home to their home. Children standing or sitting at night at the top of a set of stairs, listening to abuse of their mother in the kitchen, and paralysed in their inability to do it. I've heard the stories over and over again. It is something that should be banished from our society, and sadly it is not. I also know that alcohol plays a huge part in it. I know the fact of many men, particularly in rural Ireland, who come home from the pub, gained with their extra confidence, who administer such punishment and abuse on the weakest. And I think it's something that, as Sharon said, needs to be part of our national dialogue. And if I'm honoured to be elected president, I would happily serve as a patron of Safe Ireland, because I believe sometimes we need men, while this is about women. I would happily stand as a role model to raise the issue among men, because if they are the perpetrators, we need to raise this as awareness among them, that it is not acceptable in any part of our society that men would abuse women in any way. I think it is sad. I think there is a lot that needs to be done. Firstly, there is the awareness within society. Secondly, there is the confidence to give to women to step forward. Thirdly, there is the protection and legislative framework that needs to be put in place. And it is not one simple solution, as Sharon said, but certainly as President, I don't want to give you an easy answer today, other than to say that my door will be open, my ear will be there, and I will do anything I can as President to make sure that this is eradicated from every aspect of our society. No respectful, compassionate society should tolerate the abuse of anyone, let alone the women in this country. Thank you.
It's questions from the floor. Maybe you give your name when you want to ask a question. Okay, hands up. Right, lady there with the glasses.
My name is Jacqueline Healy from the National Women's Council of Ireland, and I would like to ask the candidates, if they became president, what major initiatives would they conduct in order to advance women's equality, especially for women who find themselves in vulnerable situations in Ireland? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Gallagher.
Yes, Jacqueline, I think it's such an important issue, and that's why I said that I would happily, as President, be patron of the organisation, or to raise awareness in anywhere I can. I think we need to change the conversation, even among men, about the acceptance level of any downgrading of women, because I think that's where it starts. It's one of the reasons why, along with other issues like mental health and confidence, that I said as President I would address every school in this country during my term, which is a big commitment, but I believe from being a youth worker, from working and writing alcohol programs back in the 80s, we have to start to educate even young boys about how they treat people and the language. But there is a lot of different aspects to this, and the dots need to be joined. And the first thing I would do is listen to you, to your organisations, who are the advocates, who know what's needed on the ground, and I will respond accordingly within the powers of the President to do anything I can, because I know from my own experience it's not just about physical violence, it's about psychological downgrading, and emotional abuse as well, which robs women of the very confidence that allows them to leave. And it is that thing also that so many women, as Michael D rightly said, stayed not even for the institution, but for face, for the family, and also for the protection of the kids, of their children, which so many women give up their lives for. And I'm absolutely and 100% behind this.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Lots of people. I'll take from this side. It'll be really equal. Woman here. Brilliant.
Mary Ronayne from Carlow Women's Aid. 2.5 billion is the cost of violence against women currently. We're working at a time of increasing demands on our services with reduced funding. These are services that are largely operated by women, founded by women, for women and children. Not many women in politics, not many women in boardrooms, like Mary's Davis's success, I suppose. But so I'm just wondering, what would the candidates do around engaging business and entrepreneurial interests in coming in and supporting us to address the issue of domestic abuse?
Okay, Sean Gallagher.
Thank you, Mary. Well, I guess it would be probably limiting to confine it solely to enterprise and business. I think, in the workplace, the importance of recognising women and celebrating their talents and making sure that there are no barriers to their progression. Also, I think, it's the independence of women. I think in my own case of the abuse that I have witnessed, most of the women that I knew growing up who were in domestic violence situations were dependent. Many of them told me their stories, sadly some of them quite elderly at the time, who didn't even have their own income. They were attached to their husband's pension or entitlements, and they didn't even have an identity. Gladly we've moved on from there. But I think the idea of trying to find support, what I can tell you from what I see on the ground, the stories coming back to me, is that when we see the pressure that so many people are under, and unemployment and loss of jobs, we're going to see more abuse, sadly, because of the pressure in so many homes. And we're going to see more alcohol, and we're going to see more depression and mental illness. And I think this is where we need to interject now. I would happily raise it within the entrepreneurial community so that they may come in to support, perhaps financially. But I think it's a much bigger picture than that. I think we need to take it right up. And Sharon's at the outset, I think, made the point. It's got to be a national dialogue right across every sector and every age and every socio-economic grouping.
My name is Conal Burke from the Mayo Women's Support Services. I would like to ask the candidates, it's a well-recognised fact within the domestic violence services that children are victims of domestic violence as much as the women, and this document certainly supports that. As potential leaders of this state, what will you do to protect the children that live in domestic violence and are affected by it?
Thank you, Michael D. Sean?
I guess I've witnessed for many years the impact of domestic violence on children. I think it's the fact that so many children feel helpless, and many will tell you that when they get to a stage of 14 and 15, they stand up for their mother, coming between perhaps a drunken father and a helpless mother. That's a position no child should ever be placed in. That robs the child of their entire childhood. Also, it creates, as Michael D alluded to it, it creates perpetual generational abuse, because children who grow up in homes, whether that's abuse or indeed alcohol, which I've written about, learned behaviour becomes patterns that replicate themselves, and the only way to do that is eradicate them as quickly as possible. It's part of the reason why I spend so much time in schools trying to educate and shine a light on these things for young people. I think young people need to be given the sense that there is help, and they need to be able to reach out, because sometimes a young person cannot talk to a mother about their own position because they want to soak up some of that pain. And I think we need to be able to make sure that there is a helpline and there is somewhere to go, so that that young child doesn't feel that it's their fault and that they have to have that helplessness removed. That's why I believe it's so important to do that, and I will do anything. Again, sometimes I think when people ask us at every single conference, every day, what will the president do, what will the president do, we may be tempted to go, here's 10 things we should do. The truth is, I know that we don't have the answers, but I think you do, and what we need to do is to listen to you as advocacy groups and support you in everything you do, so that we bring the weight of the presidency to your issue. Thank you.